fan of Varonis. The regional manager for Varonis.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Cedric from Varonis. So, yes, so I colleagues with Antonio. So Antonio Soriano is over there. Antonio is responsible for the business here in the Philippines. So thank you for your time. Thank you, CTV, for having us here as well to share a little bit more about the partnership and the technology that we do. Right? All right. So I'm going to start with a true story. Okay. So a background. I'm from Singapore. So if you're familiar with Singapore's English, which we call Singlish, it's not exactly English, but you understand, right? So this WhatsApp message came from a friend. He sent me a message one fine day and said, to cut a long story short here, he received an email that looks like this, right? And he asked me, should he click on this email? And I said, no, it looks a bit suspicious. I don't think Microsoft sends emails like that. Fortunately, he didn't click on it. He did a little googling and he finds out that this is actually a phishing attack, right? But the main point that I want to bring up here is that it looks very legit. So sorry, Singlish alert there. So LOR, just ignore that. Right? Yes. So the reason why I bring this up is that threats are not just becoming more. Threats are becoming very hard to detect. And in most cases, every hacker or the bad guys all know that the best way to infiltrate is to infiltrate through the end users of the organizations itself. As in context of this quote here, it's basically a lot more about ransomware. But as we know that ransomware has come to the point that almost nobody is talking about it anymore. Why? Because it happens so much and it keeps on going on. There's no way that anyone's stopping it. And we can see that based on the growth of ransomware activities from the last year to this year, it never stops. It keeps on growing. So what's it actually telling you about threats? Threats are actually ever increasing, right? So just a little bit about data about people having access. The problem about end users or organizations having access to data. Well, Varonis and Polymon had done a survey and we found that a huge majority of people in most organizations have access to data that they should not see. Right. So what kind of problems does that pose? That kind of poses a problem that there's a lot of exposure in terms of permissions. If I work for your organization and I don't really have any reason to have to view the HR files or the legal files, but I do. And in this case, I become a threat vector, right? So very simply put, when I'm the bad guy, I'm trying to hijack my account and trying to get access to information that I didn't know I had access to. Now also, not only that, these days the bad guys are not just from the outside. We know that the bad guys can be from the inside as well. So we have this kind of exposure and a very small percentage of companies actually saying that they have sufficient measures of managing permissions, and also not just that, but how much of the inside of every organization is being well monitored. Well, there's a lot of investments on endpoint security, on firewalls, on the network, and rightly so. But the problem with that is that nothing is focused on behind, on the inside. And as I've tried to establish earlier, the threat vectors, the sensitive, or rather the weak spots of every organization are the end users, like ourselves, right? So there's this huge gap there that is missing, right? Okay, and the question is, what are these guys targeting? What are the bad guys from the outside, or what even the insiders are targeting if they decide to go rogue? And it's actually data, and what kind of data is specific. A lot of times, a lot of data is all in the databases, but it does not really stay there alone, right? You have many situations whereby you have financial statements, company's balance sheet, P&L. All these are usually in the form of Excel spreadsheets. There are conversations or there are meeting minutes among the C-level people, and all these are sensitive information that's stored in PowerPoint slides, right? Just to name a few. So the thing about data is being in files, and these files are all created by non-IT people that don't necessarily have the back of their head, how should I secure data? But they create the most sensitive data, the most critical data in every organization. And from experience from customers sharing with us, they say, okay, sensitive files, put in certain places, don't put anywhere else. Guess where these guys put these files? They put it exactly where they're not supposed to put. So what happens in that case is that sensitive data gets exposed, and it's also very, very difficult without the right solution, the right technology to actually pinpoint where the problem is and to fix it. Okay, so I think something that you might have come across already, the GDPR, which is from the Eurozone, one of the most intense worldwide global compliance that's coming to hit the rest of the world in May. But then again, it's more fun in the Philippines, not just GDPR. The National Privacy Commission is also going to happen and sometime really soon. So I'm not going to pretend. I think you all will know better about the NPC than I do, right? So what does this mean to you? What does it mean to why there's this partnership between Computrade and Varonis, right? Because there's this huge gap that's over there. There's this huge gap that needs to be filled to protect, not just to protect the data of every organization here in the Philippines, but also to comply to the rules that the government is putting in place. Right? Just to give an example, do you know him? Any explanation? Yeah, so he's a movie star, right? He's bigger than a movie star. That's Edward Snowden, that's correct. So Edward Snowden is one particular real-life incident of a threat from the inside. Edward Snowden himself was not an employee of the NSA, but he was a third-party contractor from Bruce Allen Hamilton. He is inside there, he had access to files and folders. He didn't need to hack to get data out. All he just needed to do is abuse his rights to the data that he has access to. What are other possibilities as well? Okay, with great powers come great responsibilities. So that would be the administrators in many organizations. In this story here, this particular administrator that has quite a bit of power in managing and security in the organization. He wanted to retire, but he wanted to retire and buy a beach house. Wasn't able to do that, so as a result, he colluded with someone outside to try to steal data and try to mask it out with a cybersecurity incident. Well, fortunately for the company, he was finally caught. But this is one classic case where by a person who has huge privileges within the organization, within data itself, can actually abuse it. Right, and I don't think we need to talk about this. Basically, the background, this is the Sony hack. Sony hack has been a really poster boy message about an insider threat as well, whereby it was suspected that certain country has infiltrated within the Sony organization, been sitting there for over a year and quietly stealing data, including employees' details, including the particular movie files, and managed to get them exfiltrated. And last and not least, something pertaining to what we've been hearing a lot about, ransomware. This particular hospital was hit by ransomware. So ransomware is a very classic case whereby you have an employee who, just out of goodwill, like the story that I shared earlier, click on the link, ended up opening a opportunity for a bad guy to come inside and start to encrypt files. So as a result, after that, in order to have the code, the password to decrypt the files, they are supposed to make some payment in the form of bitcoins. So this was in 2016. This was 40 bitcoins. Back then, it cost the hospital 17,000 to pay. Today, it will have been, not today, yesterday's price will have 326,000 USD. Okay, so to drive home the reason why we are here, why Computrade and us are here as well, because the problem about data and security, the two worlds have collided. There used to be a time whereby security is something way ahead and data is somewhere not catching up. But today's data, the importance of our data has come up so greatly that the whole question comes is there sufficient security to take care of the data demand that is driven in every organization these days, right? Okay, so the thing about data, ideally what a mature organization should have in the management of data, it's not supposed to be a case whereby I will have to do one big massive data administration to sort out all permissions within a short period of time every year and do complete complete overhauls of data framework. So basically, what we are aiming to do together with Computrade here is to help organizations to progress from a very siloed or very broken up reactive model into a model that mature organizations will just be able to build a very good, strong platform to protect data from the inside, from behind the firewalls, from behind the endpoints, right? So in the past, or rather maybe even today, the old way of managing data are basically very siloed solutions. You have certain solutions that covers one part of data governance, the other part on data security, data classification, so on and so forth. But ideally, what we all aim to do is to build together a platform. So a platform that every organization can just build on and run and make sure that data continues to be protected as every hour of the day. Right, so just to give a little plug by Forrester. So Forrester also gave this means of surveying 150 companies, and the decision it comes to it, which is actually a very logical decision. If you build a good platform, build it and run it, and then you will have to keep data protected all the time without having people to react in times where they are not able to react. Okay, so in closing, basically this is a framework that organizations would use Varonis to protect their data, to detect, to prevent, sustain. Right, so in a nutshell, detect, we turn on the lights to help organizations know where the problem lies. Are there too many permissions, over-permissioning of files? You basically have to turn on the lights because you can't catch what you can't see. After you know what the problem is, then the next thing is to prevent. We build rules, preventive measures, we sort out permissions to reduce excessive data accesses, know where sensitive data are, and finally, to sustain. So everything that we talked about is what technology is for. Everything that is built will run without needing too much human intervention, and data becomes protected 24/7. All right? Okay, so a little bit about Varonis before I close. Varonis has been around since 2005. It's headquartered in New York City. It's listed in the New York Stock Exchange. As of now, we have about 6,000 customers globally. And basically, a lot of organizations use Varonis to help locate and identify sensitive data on file systems and protect them against insider threats and cyber attacks. All right, so yes, so thank you for your time. Antonio, I appreciate the time that you've given us to share with you. Thank you.